Most people have never heard his name, but without him, there might be no United States today. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and dying from exhaustion. Yet his strategy turned the war around. This is the secret story of Nathanael Greene. Nathanael Greene was once a blacksmith who limped from childhood. Yet he rose to command armies, outsmart Britain's best generals, and change the course of America forever. Few know his name, but by the end of this video, you'll understand why even Washington called him irreplaceable. Imagine this: you're 32 years old, you weren't trained in war, you have no formal military education, and yet the fate of an entire country is placed in your hands. If you fail, America dies before it's born. This was Nathanael Greene, and most people haven't even heard his name. Greene was born in 1742 in Rhode Island into a Quaker family, a group that opposed violence in war. He had a lung condition. He limped slightly from a childhood injury. Not exactly what you'd call army material. His father wanted him to become a preacher or stay with the family business. But Greene had other plans. He was obsessed with war. Not making war, understanding it. He read everything he could get his hands on: military theory, strategy, the history of great generals. People laughed at him. He was just a blacksmith's son. No experience, no rank, no noble blood. But like many quiet geniuses in history, Greene had something far more dangerous than pedigree. He could think. And once war with Britain began, that ability would change everything. But how does a man with no battle experience rise to become Washington's most trusted general? We'll get to that. But first, the colonies were on fire. In 1775, the American colonies reached the tipping point. The first shots were fired at Lexington and Concord. Newspapers printed stories of rebellion. British troops marched toward Boston. The war was no longer a theory. It was real. And Greene, like many others, volunteered to join the fight. But what he did next surprised everyone. He purchased military books and brought them with him to camp. Why? Because Greene wasn't satisfied with being a soldier. He wanted to understand how to outsmart an empire. And soon he got his chance. Greene showed such discipline, calm under pressure, and leadership that by 1775, just months into the war, he was promoted to Brigadier General of the Rhode Island Militia. People were stunned. He had never fought a real battle. He limped. He came from nothing. But George Washington took notice, and here's where everything changes. By 1776, Greene and Washington had met. Initially, Washington was cautious with new generals, but something about Greene stood out. He was thoughtful. He didn't speak to impress. He listened. He asked strategic questions. He stayed up past midnight writing breakdowns of British tactics. And Washington? Washington saw himself in Greene. He took the young general under his wing, often seeking his counsel, giving him more responsibility, trusting him with fragile situations. Behind the scenes, Greene slowly became Washington's right-hand man. But almost no one knew it, yet. But Greene's real test wasn't in New England. It came later, in a place so brutal it was called the Graveyard of Generals. We'll go there in a moment. But first, something shocking happened that nearly took Greene out of the war permanently. In 1777, a scandal broke out in the Continental Army. Supplies were failing, troops were starving. The government didn't have the logistics to keep everyone clothed and fed. Guess who was asked to fix it? Nathanael Greene. He didn't want the role. It was a political trap, but he took it anyway, out of duty. And in just 1 year, he reorganized the broken supply system.
Warehouses, delivery routes, contracts, all optimized under Greene's calm hand. Soldiers began to get boots, ammunition, soap, salt, flour. But by 1780, the war had taken a sharp turn, one that would throw Greene out of supply lines and into catastrophe. A disaster was unfolding in the South. Entire armies were being crushed. One general had already run away. Another sparked a mutiny. The British were winning, and fast. Who did Washington turn to? You already know the name. The year is 1780, and the war is not going well. The British have changed tactics, and it's devastating. Forget the frozen North. They're heading south now, into Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia. Why? Because the South is fragile, split loyalties, weak command, easy to divide. In May 1780, Charleston, South Carolina falls. A massive American army is captured. A military disaster. Worse, the commanders in charge, some fled, others were killed, one man was even court-martialed for incompetence. Morale is collapsing. Deserters are everywhere. The South looks lost. So Congress in Washington needed someone bold, someone smart, someone crazy enough to take a war drowning in disaster and reverse it. They turned to one man. Yep, Nathanael Greene. When Greene received the letter appointing him the new commander of the Southern Army, he didn't celebrate. He paused and said, "No man can command an army without secrets from the Congress, and with such an army as this, we need a miracle." He knew what it meant. He was going into hell. Almost no soldiers, no supplies, sick horses, broken wagons, rotting food. Worse, the British had the best commanders in the world stationed there. General Cornwallis, trained, brutal, experienced, and marching with overwhelming numbers. So how do you win a war when you have almost nothing? Greene was about to show them, but not with more men. He'd use something deadlier. Movement, deception, delay, patience. Most generals hate retreating. It looks weak, politically risky, demoralizing to their army. But Greene flipped the chessboard. Instead of fighting big, traditional battles, he slowed the war down. He split his forces into smaller, faster-moving commands, created supply lines from scratch, hid weapons in barns, woods, and friendly farms. He moved at night, switched tactics weekly. He turned the South into a game of survival. And he knew something the British didn't. They could win battles and still lose the war. One of Greene's boldest moves was putting one of his own in charge of a separate band of guerrilla fighters. That man was Daniel Morgan. Morgan used short, brutal skirmishes, attack a supply depot, burn the wagons, disappear. Then lure Cornwallis forward slowly, stretching his supply lines thinner and thinner. All the while, Greene was preparing his gamble. January 17, 1781, Cowpens, South Carolina. Morgan's forces set up a battlefield that would go down in history. He tricked British cavalry into a false sense of victory, letting the front lines fall back, pretending to retreat, only to be replaced by a hidden second line waiting in silence. The result? One of the most decisive American victories of the war. British losses? Devastating. Confidence? Shattered. Cornwallis was furious. And Greene? He was watching and preparing for the next move in his deadly game. But now Cornwallis is obsessed, and Greene knows it. He's about to pull the British deep into a trap thousands of miles wide. The next chapter is called The Great Run and the Gamble That Almost Killed Him. Cornwallis was furious. After Cowpens, his army had been embarrassed, outmaneuvered by rebels he considered untrained peasants. His pride was bleeding, and now he wanted revenge. But Greene was already thinking 10 steps ahead. What Cornwallis didn't realize was this: Greene wasn't going to fight him head-on, not yet. He wanted Cornwallis to chase him, to follow him deeper and deeper into unfamiliar territory, stretching his forces thinner by the day, while Greene's own men moved like shadows across the landscape. This wasn't just war, it was war as art. Cornwallis took the bait. He started chasing Greene's army across North Carolina. It became known as the Race to the Dan River, and it would go down as one of the smartest escape and delay tactics of the entire Revolution. But Greene had a problem, a massive one. His army was starving. His clothes were soaked. His men were marching barefoot, bleeding from the feet. Horses collapsed. Food was running out. Many soldiers hadn't eaten in days. And worst of all, the Dan River was just ahead. It was overflowing from winter rains. If Greene didn't cross in time, Cornwallis would catch up.
And with it, massacre. Greene had to make a decision: burn documents and move faster, split the army and risk being picked off, or wait for reinforcements that might never come. He chose to gamble it all. Greene sent secret riders ahead to gather every available boat from miles around. Canoes, rafts, fishing boats, even crude ferry platforms, anything that could carry a soldier across the river. He had one shot. If the British reached the river first, he was done. His troops reached the Dan, shivering, exhausted, but they made it. And just as they began crossing, Cornwallis's men appeared in the distance. Watching helplessly from the other bank, Greene's army made it across in time, every man. It was one of the most narrow escapes in American military history. He made the British overextend themselves. Cornwallis had marched his men for hundreds of miles chasing shadows, and now they were sick, tired, hungry, and operating in a place they didn't understand. Exactly where Greene wanted them. But what happened next surprised even him. Cornwallis, realizing he couldn't catch Greene, changed tactics. He burned his own supply wagons and set off deeper into enemy territory, thinking he could destroy Greene by forcefully storming the rebellion. It was a bold move, but incredibly dangerous, because now the British army had no food, no ammunition reserves, and no backup. Greene saw his moment coming, so he picked a battlefield. Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina, March 15, 1781. Greene arranged his army in a triple-layered defense: militia in front, Continental regulars behind, sharpshooters in the woods, muskets loaded, orders clear. Cornwallis marched in, and the battle began. Gunfire, smoke, screams in the woods, cannons booming across an open field. It was chaos. Cornwallis pushed through Greene's troops, but not without a cost. His army was devastated, dozens dead, hundreds wounded, ammunition nearly gone. Yes, Greene withdrew, intentionally, because in the end, he had done what no one expected. He had bled Cornwallis dry. Cornwallis won the field, but he lost so many men, many of his officers said it felt like defeat. Wounded, weakened, and desperate for support, Cornwallis pulled back and made a decision he'd regret forever. He called on the Royal Navy, sailed his wounded army to a small coastal town in Virginia, a place called Yorktown. And that was the beginning of the end. But Greene? He didn't even get the credit. Washington got the glory. Lafayette got mentioned in history books. But the man who pushed Cornwallis to the edge? The man who bled the British dry in the southern states? That was Nathanael Greene. And his job wasn't over yet. Greene still had to face betrayal, heartbreak, and a brutal end that very few people know about. You're about to see the side of the story most documentaries never show. Yorktown fell in October of 1781. General Cornwallis, trapped between Washington's army and the French fleet, surrendered over 7,000 British troops. And just like that, the war was effectively over.
Across the young colonies, celebrations broke out. Freedom had been won, or so everyone thought. But down south, where the British had first collapsed, Nathanael Greene wasn't celebrating. Why? Because his war was still raging. The British may have surrendered at Yorktown, but in the southern states, raids were still happening. Local militias, both loyalist and patriot, were out for revenge. Towns were being looted, civilians caught in the crossfire, and there was no command structure. Everyone looked to Greene. So while other generals paraded in Philadelphia or returned home to applause, Greene stayed behind. He traveled across Georgia, the Carolinas, even parts of Florida, trying to hold the nation together before it even had a name. And it nearly broke him. He didn't see his wife and children for months at a time. He battled illness constantly, fevers, ulcers, exhaustion, yet he kept going. He negotiated land disputes, issued pardons, and tried to de-escalate revenge killings on both sides. His letters from this time are heartbreaking. One historian wrote, "It was Greene who taught the nation how to end a war gracefully." But history didn't write it that way. But why was Greene erased from most textbooks? Why isn't there a monument in every city? Hold on to that. We're getting there. But first, something happened that changed everything for Greene, financially, emotionally, and reputationally. Back when Greene was managing the military supplies, remember part 1? He'd relied on a firm to help source materials on credit. The firm was called Morris & Nicholson. Greene never personally profited. He used their network to get food, boots, and tents for soldiers the government couldn't supply. He even spent his own money at times to feed hungry troops. Fast forward to 1783, the war is over. Congress is cleaning its books, and suddenly, that old supply company went bankrupt. Big debts, missing records, political finger-pointing. Guess who they blamed? Nathanael Greene. He was hounded with lawsuits, smears in newspapers, anonymous letters accusing him of war profiteering. The man who gave up nearly everything for the Continental Army
Was being dragged through the mud by the government he helped save. Greene tried to defend himself. He wrote letters, got character witnesses, even had Washington publicly praise him. But the economic damage was brutal. His land was seized, properties tied up in court, banks frozen, friends stopped returning letters. And just when it seemed like he'd recover, tragedy struck. Summer, 1786, Georgia. Nathanael Greene, still not 45 years old, took a brief break from his work. He went to oversee his new plantation on the Savannah River. Just a few days into the trip, he walked along a path in the blistering heat. No shade, no water, just southern sun. He collapsed, suffering heat stroke or possibly malaria. He never recovered. He died just a few days later. There were no national parades, no holiday declared, no statue commissioned. Just a few local notices, a quiet funeral, and then history moved on without him. Nathanael Greene didn't chase glory. He didn't ask for fame. All he wanted was for the country he helped create to survive. He masterminded one of the most brilliant Southern campaigns in the history of modern warfare, a campaign now studied in West Point classrooms and barely remembered by the public. His children would spend years trying to clear his name from the morass of debt smears. One letter from his wife read, "America has forgotten the man who refused to forget her." And maybe that's the most American thing of all. Real heroes don't brag. They don't wait for statues. They simply step forward when no one else will. That's what Greene did, over and over and over again. But even though America tried to erase him, there's one moment recently uncovered that may finally restore Greene's legacy, and it'll leave you stunned.
That's what's coming in the finale. They buried Greene not with a military band, nor in a grand state funeral, but quietly, in a private plot of land in Georgia, surrounded not by presidents or generals, but family members and those few Southern patriots who still remembered what he'd done. And for a while, that was it. His name faded. His war record got buried under the headlines of Yorktown and Washington's presidency. For decades, even centuries, school books barely mentioned him. No Hollywood films, no viral anecdotes. He became a footnote. But then, something changed. In the early 2000s, military historians began reanalyzing Revolutionary War tactics. And something strange kept coming up. In journal after journal, letter after letter from the era, British generals feared one American name more than any other. Not Washington, not Lafayette, not even Benedict Arnold. The name was Greene. Why? Because his strategy was modern. He played a long game. He weaponized exhaustion, moved troops like chess pieces. He knew how to make his enemy bleed slowly without ever needing to win big. Cornwallis himself once wrote, "Wherever we go, Greene is there first, preparing the ground beneath our feet." This was a man who had no formal military training, but redefined warfare. And historians began asking an uncomfortable question. Wait, why isn't this guy being taught everywhere? Today, in West Point and other top military schools, Nathanael Greene's Southern campaign is required reading. They teach his tactics, his maneuvers, his ability to fight without fighting. Even generals in Iraq and Afghanistan have studied his strategies for asymmetric warfare. Greene was a man 200 years ahead of his time. Yet outside those halls, he's still mostly unknown. Why? Why did America forget Nathanael Greene? Turns out, history isn't just shaped by victories. It's shaped by storytellers, by who wins, and also who writes it down. Greene never lived long enough to tell his story. He died before the nation was even fully formed, before biographies were penned, before monuments were erected. His voice got drowned out, and others took credit for battles he made possible. In every generation, there are people like Nathanael Greene, quiet visionaries, behind-the-scenes builders, the ones who don't want the spotlight, but without them, everything collapses. We love the faces on the coins, the names we learned in school. But the truth is, America is built on more than just its headlines. It's built on men and women who sacrifice, serve, and stay forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, it's our job to remember them. In 1902, over a century after he died, Greene's remains were moved by the U.S. government to a monument in Johnson Square, Savannah. It was a quiet act of redemption, a way for the nation to say, "We remember now." The inscription reads, "Soldier of the Revolution, Patriot, Hero." But for those who know the truth, it should say, "The general who saved America and asked for nothing in return." Nathanael Greene never asked to be a leader. He wasn't born into fame. He didn't have money, a formal education, or a traditional path to power. But when his country was falling apart, when no one else would take the burden, he said, "Give it to me." And that's what makes him rare, not just as a general, but as a human being. Because the true sign of strength isn't winning when everything's in your favor. It's standing calmly in the chaos and leading anyway. That's the legacy of Greene. And today, you know his name. What would you have done in Greene's shoes? If this story moved you, hit like and share his name.